everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have another amazing Author Talks interview for you. This is Xander Phanes. They are the author of Doppelganger. So, Xander, thank you so much for being on here with us. Can you tell us more about this incredible book? I absolutely love this cover. So, if you could mention something about how you created the cover as well, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And I do actually have the copy next to me. The cover is probably inverted. We'll see
Very
how it
cool.
comes out.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm the author of Doppelganger, and uh a little bit about the story. And probably even a little bit about me as well. I'm a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde aficionado. And I was just obsessed with a story as a kid. So um Doppelganger, pretty much um ambitiously try to continue the story of Jekyll and Hyde through my main characters in Doppelganger. And the the idea for the book cover, actually, I had an idea to include a mirror in there because mirrors play a huge role in the story. And I wanted to have a broken mirror on the cover. And I kind of went back and forth with how to design it because I am also an artist. I'm an author and an artist, and I decided to just make the cover myself. So I wanted to include a broken mirror and just the word doppelganger on there. If I don't know if you noticed it as well, but on the cover it does doppelganger is
Mhm.
reflected in the bottom and inverted.
Yeah. It is
Um,
very cool.
yeah, just kind of a mirror motif in it as well.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy because the story is set in a fictional Edwardian era city in England, and I wanted to give it an Edwardian kind of um, feel to it. And I wanted to give it some um, like dark themes and dark colors and stuff. So it's a bit about the cover. I can talk a little bit about uh the story if you'd like, a
Yeah,
little bit.
definitely.
So the story, like I mentioned, is inspired by Jekyll and Hyde, and like I mentioned, the theme of the mirror is a huge theme in there. And I'll read a little bit actually from the um synopsis on the back. So my two characters, um, their names are Oasis Utterson and Elliot Warlow. And kudos to anyone who can guess the Easter egg in Elliot's name. Um, Elliot, I'll repeat it again, Warlow. Um, and if anyone gets it, that'd be great. If not, maybe I'll tell you about it at the end. Um, but Oasis and Elliot endeavor to remake Dr. Jekyll's formula to prove that it is safe to secure funding for an institute that they run called the Institute of Lysology. I also totally made up that word in science. Lysology, lys meaning to release and free. So it's kind of the study of the release of the soul, basically. So they're trying to do that, secure funding and support for their Institute of Lysology, and it's an institute uh, that created by the late Dr. Jekyll. And yes, I made Jekyll gay because he's so fruity. You can't convince me otherwise.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, so it's an institute that the late Dr. Jekyll and his husband, John Gabriel Utterson, created to further the understanding of the soul. Of course, no one is willing to be the test subject of such experimentation, so Elliot decides to test it on himself. Needless to say, it doesn't really go well, and Elliot uncovers his past trauma through the formula, the remade formula, and Oasis kind of has to balance Elliot's life against the growth of her institute.
Mm.
That's the basic premise of the story. It does have some threads of addiction in there as well,
Mhm.
because I do have some like mental health background, mental health like training and background, so I thread that in a little bit.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that's really about the story. and me.
So because this is sort of, I would say, almost like a reimagined fan fiction plus historical fiction, what
Kind
kind
of.
of research did you have to do to create this story?
Oh yeah, definitely. You're right. And you know what? Not a lot of people, I'm so glad you mentioned this. It yeah, I'm not ashamed of it. It is sort of fan fiction and a bit of historical fiction, but I actually did end up doing a little bit of research about the differences between the Edwardian and the Victorian era in London, not London, but England in general, especially because of Eliot's background. Um, and I did, sometimes I tend to, and anyone in the comments, you can let me know if this happens to you too. But when you're doing historical research or any kind of research, do you tend to go down like these extensive research rabbit holes that you know you're not going to need, but
Mhm.
you still go down these rabbit holes anyway?
Mhm.
So I went down a rabbit hole about clothes for some reason. Um, and I did kind of a little bit of research about the social structure during that time um, to inform Eliot's background. And there is a little bit of like a a thread of class difference in the story as well. It's very faint, like I don't dive deeply into it, but I do also kind of uh, draw upon that thread specifically through the antagonist of the story, which for some reason I made the antagonist a descendant of Sir Danvers Carew, which is a character in the original Jekyll and Hyde story. And I made it like a feud between the Carew family and the Jekyll family.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's a bit ambitious, but you know what? I'm proud of it.
A bit Romeo and Juliet there, having feuding
Yeah,
families.
still a little bit. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that you went down rabbit holes for your research. This is one thing that I found so consistent among all historical fiction writers. Every single historical fiction writer I've talked to has said the same thing, that they like go down a rabbit hole about some like obscure, like minimal thing that's not even going to end up in their book, and they just like go in, like they go into it. The clothes, for example. But I think it's a great thing that you do this. Just because even if you don't use it in your story, it comes across very clearly that it's well researched. So while you might have gone down this rabbit hole of like the clothes and the outfits, and you might not have intentionally planned to describe the outfits in a specific way, the fact that you know what you're talking about does come across very clearly to us who are reading the story.
I
And yeah,
appreciate
this is
that.
something, yeah, this is something I found like all historical fiction writers do, which I find so funny.
It is funny, and I'm glad I'm not alone.
No, definitely not. But I do like that you do such like copious amounts of research because we do notice as readers, at least most of us, I think we do. So when like I'm looking at something historical, or even something like fantastical, and I see something that doesn't add up, it's like a red flag in my head, and I'm like, oh, like it hurts my soul a little bit because I know it's wrong, and I know they didn't like develop this as much as they should have. Maybe that's just me.
Definitely.
So what did you do when you published your book? Did you go the indie route? Did you do a publisher? Did you curry it at all? Like, what was your process after you finished writing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for asking. And I feel like this is something that I've kind of come a long way to sort of dismantle um, a very sort of self-defeatist mindset that I've had as an author, as an indie author specifically. Um, so for many years, I felt like absolutely nobody is going to give me any heed, any attention, not even bat an eye towards me as an author because um, I felt like a tiny, minuscule speck um, in the world full of authors and publishing companies, and it's very fierce, and it feels like only and I hate to like be negative, but I'll make it positive again. Don't worry, but it feels like only the people who have the time and money to enter into the industry have the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, you have to, personally, I feel like you'd have to dedicate so much time and energy and money to query, to send hundreds of query letters, to reach out to literary agents, to maybe have a chance for someone to, you know, pity me and take a look at the query letter and maybe take a look at the book. And I thought to myself, yeah, I really don't have the energy and time or money for that. Especially because I'm developing my author and artist career, but I'm also developing a professional career as well. And I only have 24 hours in the day, 8 of which I'm supposed to be asleep in. So I thought, you know what, I'll forget about this large, huge publishing industry. And by coincidence, or maybe by fate, I found an ad on Instagram for an indie publisher called Wandering Minds Publishing. And I was like, you know what? I finished the 10th draft. I'm just gonna submit my manuscript and see what happens. And I submitted, and I didn't need a literary agent. I didn't really need, and they responded to me, and yeah, I was able to publish it through them eventually.
That's very, very cool. So you've had good success with this publishing company, this indie publishing company. What's it been like working with them? Like, what did you do to query with them? How has the process been between, you know, that initial letter and actually publishing your book? Like, what have they done to help you? Because a lot of the a lot of the indie authors who watch this, are thinking about going along that route of doing an indie publisher or hybrid publisher or traditional publishing, but there's not a lot of information out there on like what exactly the indie publisher does once they get your book.
Absolutely. So, and keep in mind, Doppelganger is my debut novella. So I'm just starting in my author career. So whatever experience I share, it's from my own still young experience.
Yeah.
But based on my experience, I feel a lot more comfortable. I've sort of tried to let go, and I've completely let go of the idea of because it's just an idea of, you know, being a writer and publishing with large publishing companies. And if that's your cup of tea, then absolutely go for it. But for me, I don't know if that's my cup of tea anymore. So I feel like I want to support indie publishers and indie everything, indie even video game companies. Side note, I love video games, but as an indie author, so I decided to reach out to them because I felt like that's the best chance I had, and in fact, it was the best chance. And I'm a year after I reached out to them, I was published. So I really am so grateful for well, number one, I'm kind of grateful and proud of myself for taking that little bit of a leap of faith
Yeah.
to reach out to them. And they've been incredibly the only word that I can just use to describe them, very human with me. They've been very open and honest, and there's this connection that I have with Wandering Minds Publishing that I don't think I would ever have with a huge publisher.
Yeah.
And they're always connecting with me, and you know, I follow through with them, and they connect back with me in a very efficient and honest way. And another thing that I really truly appreciate about Wandering Minds Publishing that's made my author career um, kind of really, as a debut author, made it very fulfilling, is that they source the paper for the books from the certified Forest Stewardship Council certified recycled paper.
Oh,
And that
cool.
means so much to me as an indie author and as someone who's incredibly I mean, who's incredibly
Yeah, that's
you know,
great.
mindful of the environment.
Hmm.
I'm also like a bit of an environmentalist, and someday I hope to kind of partake in a reforestation effort one day when I grow up. Um, so that's one thing that is very fulfilling about them. Another thing is that I can show you there should be a paper in here as well. 10% of the proceeds from every book goes to a charity of the author's choice.
Nice.
So you can even see it in my book. Mine goes to the Friends for Animals.
Oh,
You think I choose like an addiction or some sort of
It's in your book.
mental health organization. No, I chose an animal shelter. Um,
Like,
um, but those are really two main things that kind of connected me to Wandering Minds Publishing, and also their like a tailored and very intentional communication with their authors. I feel like I mean something to them. I'm not just a number
yeah.
or a moneymaker or something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is something that differentiates the smaller publishers from the big traditional publishers, especially like the top five, is that there's so many turning wheels and so many people involved in the traditional publishers
Hmm.
where you are essentially a number. Unless you're one of their top best-selling authors, you're a number to them.
Yeah.
And you might not even actually make the sales that you want to make. I've heard so many horror stories from authors who are with a big traditional
Hmm.
publisher and they make a few sales a year. Whereas when you go for with a smaller press, they actually take the time to like care about you and push out your work
Absolutely.
and do the marketing and like they hold your hand and they're here for you as a human being, which
Hmm.
is very, very cool. So I love that you chose to go the indie publisher route. And I love that you speak so highly of them. I will be sure to tag them below so that they can see it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about what struggles you might have gone through? You said you made your own cover, and you do have an artistic background, so that
Hmm.
didn't seem too challenging for you. And you did eventually find the perfect publisher for you. But what kind of struggles did you go through as far as like the writing or publishing or marketing process?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the struggles that I've had, and I've kind of and I caution everyone who's listening to this to learn from my mistakes. Um, one of the biggest struggles I had, which I can say is no longer a struggle, is isolation. I used to write in isolation, and I feel like you heard me mention that I finished my 10th draft before I submitted it. Um, I feel like if I had more, if I allowed myself to reach out to a writing community, even if it's just a couple of friends, I feel like I would have reached my um, reached a point in the story where I feel like, yes, I know my story in a much
Mm,
earlier draft.
yeah.
Because I've been writing alone for so long. Well, not anymore though, and I'm so grateful for that. I feel like I don't have that perspective. I don't have that space to um, know my story, the way I want to know it.
Mm,
And it's not until I workshopped it in a friend's writers community that I was able to kind of really like sort of bust through Doppelganger and really know what the story is about.
mhm.
And I even mention I even mention my friends in there. I don't name them, but I do mention them in my acknowledgments section. So that's one struggle. Another struggle that I experienced with Doppelganger, and I'm pretty sure with future work that I have as well, is just um, being able to kind of shake off the a sense of the imposter syndrome, basically. I kept it's always in the back of my mind where I feel like I'm lying to myself and I'm lying to people. Um, but what does really make a difference is when, and that's another struggle with like social media. Social media is a very it's like a beast of its own that every author has to kind of tackle.
Yeah.
And I feel like on TikTok specifically, I was able to somehow, the stars aligned perfectly, where I used trending audio somehow, and I used keywords in my TikTok, and it kind of blew up somehow. I have no idea how that worked. I'm still baffled. And I was able to connect with a lot of people, and that was just an incredibly fulfilling experience because I felt like, yeah, people actually saw the video and it converted into actual sales, and people actually held it in their hands. And I heard a lot of people tell me that the story, like a couple of people tell me that the story has helped them, and or they've really enjoyed it, and that's something that they've been looking for in a Jekyll and Hyde Jekyll and Hyde story.
That is very cool. I love that I don't understand why you have imposter syndrome because everything that you just said about that TikTok that you made is exactly right. I do a lot of coaching for authors for marketing, especially social media marketing. And one of the things I talk about is to use SEO keywords and phrases in your videos. It is important. And I know a lot of people, hearing the word SEO and keyword is like a little bit scary, but it's
Yeah,
essentially just using words that people are going to actually pay attention to.
yeah,
And then using trending audio, posting at the right times, and just like posting in a way that hits your audience and not just trying to hit all of TikTok because that doesn't work.
definitely. It's not going to work. And the
Mhm.
keywords that I used were Jekyll and Hyde, obviously, and dark academia. Because
Mm.
it is kind of a dark academia book, and the cover is also kind of cute and dark academia and all.
Mhm.
So yeah, that really, I saw a lot of people in the comments section, kind of scooch in and say, "Did someone say Jekyll and Hyde?"
Yes, you essentially hit two small niches within the book community, which in itself is a small niche, which is
Yeah,
exactly right. That's exactly what all authors should be doing is you're in the book community, but then you have to narrow it down even farther than that to what your specific group of readers is going to be. And you did it exactly perfectly. So you should not have imposter syndrome because you cracked the code, you hit the algorithm, you conquered it, and that's incredible.
could
Imposter
be.
syndrome is something that I talk a lot about on my personal author accounts because I feel the same way. I just released my first book and I've spent so long helping other authors produce and market their books that I felt it was time to finally get my own out there. And I do
Absolutely.
still feel a little bit of that imposter syndrome of, oh my gosh, like I'm really good at the marketing. Am I even a good writer? So I fully understand. I think that's like just something that we all kind of have to go through and get over at some point. So maybe 5 years down the road, when I've published 10 more books, I'll get over it.
I mean, I also feel like imposter syndrome is a sign that you're doing it right. Because if you don't have imposter syndrome and you think that you're, on top of the world, then I'd be concerned.
Yeah, that's fair. I
So
think
that's
you should
a
have a bit
positive
of
way to think about that.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. A little bit of self-doubt, I think, pushes you to be an even better version of yourself in whatever you're doing.
Yeah, some humility is
Yeah,
is okay.
it's okay. A little bit, not too much. Not so
Yeah,
much that you don't publish your book. Still publish the book.
definitely.
Thank you so much for, telling us all about your story and like all the things that you've done to produce your book and your publishing company. I would like to close with any, tips and advice that you could possibly give to other authors who are in a similar situation as when you started.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I say yeah, absolutely a lot. Oh my goodness. But the point is, one of the I guess feedback or some tips I have, I already mentioned it, but I'll mention it again because it's so important. Please never condemn yourself to isolation. Please try your best to reach out and connect with fellow authors and friends whom you can connect with, bounce ideas off of, whatever works for you, as long as you're not writing in isolation. That's one thing. Another tip that I have is to I'm a very like what's the word? I'm very specific about my if we're talking about the act of writing, I'm very specific about my goals when I'm writing. And that works for me as a plotter, but also I try my best to like pants a little bit,
Mhm.
um, to just write from the seat of my pants. But for the most part, I do try my best to set very tangible, specific goals, and they
Mhm.
can mean whatever you want them to mean, and tailor them to you. And finally, the last piece of advice I have is to, and your friends, your writing buddies can definitely help you with that, um, is to encourage you and motivate you. Um, and it's to take a leap of faith every now and then. A lot of small, tangible steps, and maybe um, few but calculated leaps of faith. Because if I hadn't taken the leap of faith and submitted my manuscript, submitted Doppelganger to Wandering Minds, I wouldn't be here. And if I didn't see the Order of the Bookish and didn't reach out, I also wouldn't be here. Actually, one last piece of advice too. A lot of people struggle with writer's block, and one advice that I kind of incorporated is to it's 3 words. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. So take action first, then motivation will come after it. You can't always wait for motivation to come in order to take action. So those are my pieces of advice.
I love that you just said that. I feel like we're aligned right now. I literally put up a TikTok post today saying the exact same thing. Like, don't wait for inspiration to hit you. You kind of just have to do it even when you don't feel like doing it.
Yeah,
And then that's when the inspiration starts to come. It's kind of like you have to practice being inspired. And that means just doing
definitely.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then you can build that momentum. You can't wait for momentum to happen. You have to build it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you just said that. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing all that incredible advice. Congratulations on publishing your
Thank
novella.
you.
That is absolutely amazing. And I love that you found success on TikTok. Keep it going. And if you
I'm
ever have
trying my
any,
best.
you're doing an amazing job. And the advice that you gave for like the trending audio and the keywords is exactly perfect. And what I hope all authors watching this will start doing on their own TikToks as well, because it does work. So thank you for being here, Xander. Thank you for sharing your book with us. And I hope to see more writing from you in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm grateful for this connection.
Thank you. All right, guys, go ahead and check out Xander's book. I'm going to link it below. And thank you so much for watching this video and for supporting all new and indie authors in our small niche industry. All right, happy reading, guys. Bye-bye.